had a mayor changeover and I lost my job.
Well, what happened? You came there. Idaho's loss is our gain.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Are we ready?
Sorry, we were just chit-chatting.
Oh, sorry. We were waiting for all of you, and you're like, when are they going to get started? All right. Well, thank you all for being here. It's a gorgeous day. I have to say that ever since I took this job back in early 2017, I don't relish when the sun is out, largely because we know the longer we have these hot, sunny days, the harder our fire season is and the longer it is. I am really that's all good. I'm very excited to be here for the launch of Wildfire Ready Neighbors in Gig Harbor. This is a significant step in wildfire preparedness. A lot of what we've been experiencing is that our wildfires have, become a year-round threat, where we are fighting wildfires from as early as March well into Thanksgiving weekend. Now, many people on the west side of the state will think, gosh, our wildfire seasons, that's really for central and eastern Washington. But the reality is we have been seeing year after year increasing wildfires west of the Cascades. In fact, last year, for the first time in recorded Washington state history, we had more wildfires west of the Cascades than east of the Cascades. And we also know that as we have more wildfires in more populated areas, the risk gets even more significant. We all can unfortunately remember the tragedy that happened in Spokane County last year, where we had two major fires in Spokane County near very populated areas. Over 350 structures were lost. 2 people lost their lives. It was very, very difficult for the local fire district, our state firefighting, to do that fire because of so many people's lives at risk and so many homes closely populated in a high fire area. The reality is people might think, and I raised my 3 boys on Kitsap County starting back in 2000 for almost 2 decades, and I'll be honest, I wouldn't have thought at that time that wildfires would have come to western Washington, and if it did, it would have been small, or it would have been in much more rural areas. We are finding that that is not the case anymore, and it is absolutely critical that people are aware how significant the risk is when our seasons are starting, and that most of our fires are actually human-caused. This program started actually back after the Labor Day firestorm of 2020. Where we had over 17 fires. I'm sorry, not 17 fires. We had about 56 fires in 24 hours. We had 600,000 acres burn in 72 hours. It was an all-hands-on-deck moment. And we had the town of Malden, within just a few hours, 80% of the buildings in that community were burned. As I walked the devastation in that town with the mayor the day after that fire came, I saw block after block, small homes on 4,000 square foot lots right in that town center, where all that was left standing was the chimney and the foundation of the building. But on almost every single block was a home that was completely untouched. It literally looked like luck had just come to that family, or the grace of God had been able to save it. But as I learned more, I realized that there was a lot that our homeowners can do to actually prevent fire even coming to the home. And I realized right there that in addition to the work that we've done in investing in the resources at the local fire district, with training for our local firefighters, with brush trucks and equipment, and the work that we've done at the state level to have far more air resources and ground resources pre-positioned in every area of our state, that we could do more to actually empower our residences and homeowners to be able to take steps to be able to protect their own homes. And so that's where this program got launched. We started as a pilot in 3 counties, Spokane County, Okanogan County, and Chelan County, largely because they had the highest fire risk and they had already experienced pretty significant devastation. And the idea was, how do we help every homeowner be empowered with the context of making defensible space around their home? Now, I hate to bring up COVID, but we all remember COVID, where we all learned in very short order how to create defensible space between ourselves and our neighbors in the grocery store. That 6 feet rule, right? I hate to bring it back, but the reality is we learned very, very quickly what a person can do to keep their body safe, their family safe, their community safe, their first responders safe. The same rule applies in helping the 2+ million homeowners, and it's growing every single day, to be able to know the tools, the tricks, the no-cost, low-cost ways to help their home have defensible space. And every action that a homeowner takes that then spreads to the neighbor and the neighbor and the neighbor helps an entire neighborhood get safe and create that home defense range. So the great thing is when we launched this idea, I will say many people in my agency were sort of scratching their heads like, what? What are we going to do? Do you think people will actually listen? Will they actually pay attention when most of the time people aren't thinking about fire until it's literally in their backyard or they see smoke in the air? And the great thing is we have now launched this program in over 11 counties and on the east side of our state and the west side that now have over 30,000 actions being taken by over 5,000 homes. And we're just getting started. What I love about this is the empowerment it gives to a homeowner before fire is even there, that there's actually steps that they can take. I also love that it's helping our residents know that they can also reduce fires in the first place because 90% of our fires are caused by humans. And we need more of the west side of our state that are seeing increasing fires to do that preparedness. I also love the partnership that has come out of this with Department of Natural Resources and with our local fire districts, our conservation districts, our emergency management response, American Red Cross, and others. And it's great to have Gig Harbor Fire Chief Don here because of the ability that being able to empower that local firefighting community and the first responders to bring that relationship and awareness before fire even starts only means that when there is a fire, everyone is more prepared, but also communicating better and working better together. So I'm super excited about the launch of this, and I appreciate the partnerships that have gone in place, and I'm looking forward to questions and conversations. And I have to also recognize Smokey is very busy. He's extremely busy. And it is his birthday, not today, but this year. He is officially 80, and it is a little disheartening that he keeps looking better than me every year, even when he's quite a few decades older than me. But I also want to give a shout out to Guy and the team because I remember the first time I met you, Guy, and you were out there helping me understand about forest resilience and community resilience, and to see the program that we have built together and how far it's reached and how many communities are involved. And the larger breadth of partnership is huge because it's going to take all of us, one, to prevent these fires, but two, to keep our communities safe. And so with that, I'd like to introduce one of our great partners, Chief Dennis Doan with Gig Harbor Fire and Medic. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I am Dennis Doan, the Gig Harbor Fire and Medic 1 Fire Chief, and I want to express my gratitude to everyone that's here today for your unwavering commitment to keeping Gig Harbor residents safe. It's an honor to serve as the Gig Harbor Fire Chief and work along such an exceptional team and a dedicated professionals here at Gig Harbor Fire. We are no strangers to wildfire. With Chief Meyer, Lieutenant Norby Johnson, and Lieutenant Josh Bassinas' leadership, Gig Harbor's wildland firefighting team is trained. They're prepared for this wildfire season. And to help us with that mission, we've already ordered 2 more Type 3 heavies that should be here by the end of the year. But, we can't do it alone. The vital mission demands coordination and unwavering commitment from all of us. And that's why our partnership with Commissioner Hilary Franz and the Washington State Department of Natural Resources is so important. Commissioner Franz has transformed how Washington fights fires. She's prioritized an initial attack, getting on fires very quickly, and secured over $500 million from the legislature to help expand our force, to hire new firefighters, for training, for funding to local fire districts and firefighters that are on the front line. As a result, the last few years, even though we saw an increase in fires, 95% of the wildfires in this area were kept to 10 acres or less. Given the hotter and drier summer conditions, fires will increase in size, frequency, and severity in Western Washington. And Commissioner Franz recognizes this and understands the tremendous fuel load that we have here in Western Washington. That's why I'm personally excited that Gig Harbor Fire is joining Wildfire Ready Neighbors. This initiative serves as another valuable tool in our arsenal, empowering our residents with the knowledge and the resources they need to proactively prepare for what we all know is inevitable. And I'm encouraging everyone in Gig Harbor to get prepared now. Start by going to wildfireready.com and sign up to get your free customized Wildfire Ready plan to help you prioritize wildfire ready actions on your property and connect with local wildfire experts at no cost. Thank you to Commissioner Franz for her support of firefighters and your leadership and supporting local fire departments. Thank all of you for taking the steps to protect your home and your neighbor's home. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Guy?
Hello, I'm Guy Gifford. I lead the Department of Natural Resources Community Resilience Program. And it's great to be standing here with our esteemed partners in helping Gig Harbor become prepare for wildfire and become more safe and prepared for wildfire season or wildfire year, as the commissioner pointed out. One of the things that we prepare, a lot of people think large flames burn a lot of our homes down. The science has shown us it's not those large flames. It's a small little, what we call an ember, is a firefighter that can travel from a wildfire and with wind carried over miles, landing around your home and starting something on fire around your home. Chief Doan and I are going to do a demonstration with our ember house and look at the various places where these embers can land and start something on fire and give you some easy solution that can be done in an afternoon on how to prepare your home for the next wildfire. Chief, do we need to take this?
And we'll do Q&A at the end. Oh, you got it.
This is attached.
That's okay. I'll take that. Yeah, you go. You're good.
So one of the things we look at, what can an ember or a land around your home? So I'm going to talk about the bad things. Chief Doan's going to talk about some of those solutions. We kind of always start at the top, and the embers can land on your roof. Is it cedar, which easily ignite from embers, or do you have a lot of debris on it? Because if we come down the gutters, we can see what we call ember catchers. Embers can land in this gutter, start these leaves on fire, and to start your roof on fire. So these are some things that we look for as a firefighter. What are these ember catchers? And where else can embers in my home? How about your vents? Are they open? Can embers get in the vents? Windows during fire season. Maybe you want them closed because embers can get in. As we come down here, we can look at more areas embers can enter your home. Can you get through the vents that you have down low? What about the mulch you have next to your home? And we call this the first 5 feet. That critical 5 feet, we want no embers. Is it burnable mulch? You have leaves here that can catch embers on fire. So these are little places that embers can catch, land, and start something on fire, which can start your home on fire. Chief Doan.
Thank you. So what can we do? And that's what this assessment is all about. As wildfire experts come out and look at your home, what are some things that we can do? Well, first we can start with the type of plants that we have around the building and around your home. Are they fire resistant? Are they too close to their home? Are they dried out? And you can plant different fire-wise planting. You can put rock rather than mulch around your home. So many times there's a window planter. What do we do when we bring it home from Home Depot? It's full of peat moss, which is very, very burnable rather than soil. We also have these here at Gig Harbor Fire, and that is an address, because we can't find your home unless we know what it is, where it is, and have a good address system. So make sure that you have an address that we can see. Also, make sure during wildfire season that your windows are closed. and embers don't get inside. And last but not least, an 1/8" screen that'll stop embers. We can put them around all the different vents within your home. And that's an 1/8" screen that covers your vents to keep the embers out. And then if you have a shake roof, when it's time to replace it, that you put a composite roof. That's just some of the things that we'll be looking for to help you and our community become safe. Thank you, guys.
And the key thing, Chief, a lot of this can be done, in an afternoon. So it's not a big project, a lot of no-cost, low-cost things that can be simply done in an afternoon by a homeowner.
Any questions?
Any questions?
I do have one from the Seattle Times. You can put that back up. So we're live streaming. So Commissioner Franz,
Yes.
Seattle Times is wondering if you could speak to the limits of traditional fire suppression efforts and how the Wildfire Ready Neighbor program and home assessments fit into that.
So the way we've been tackling the issues around wildfire is actually, I would say it's a three-legged stool. First is making sure we actually have the resources at the local and state level to be able to respond to these fires very, very quickly, because the sooner we're able to get on top of the fire, the quicker we can keep it small, the less resources, and we can move on to the next one. And that means that we...
What was the question? Speak to the limits of traditional fire suppression efforts.
I'm going to repeat it, but I just have her say it again, so go ahead.
The limits of traditional fire suppression efforts and how Wildfire Ready Neighbors program and home assessments fit into that.
So the question is to speak to the traditional wildfire response suppression efforts and how Wildfire Ready Neighbors fits into that program, okay? So my answer to what specifically talking about, we're looking at the Department of Natural Resources from a sort of a three-legged stool. One is having the resources to be able to get on fires as quickly as possible so we can contain them, reduce the damage to property, reduce the risk to lives of our community members, lives of our first responders and our firefighters. And what that means is having the resources at the ground level, everything from a well-trained fire response from local firefighters and state firefighters and even federal firefighters working together. It also means the ground equipment, everything from our fuel tanks and fire trucks in our local level to the state and our dozer operations, and it also means air resources. When I first stepped in this role in 2017, we had 8 Vietnam War helicopters to fight fires in the entire state of Washington. They literally fought in the Vietnam War. It does not go very far when you have literally fires in every corner of the state, and oftentimes multiple times. Remember Labor Day firestorm, 56 fires in 24 hours. We set a goal, 90% of our fires we will keep to 10 acres. The last 2 years alone, with the investments that we have been able to make at the local and state level, on the ground and the air, we've been able to keep 95% of our fires below 10 acres, even as the geography has expanded in our fire response responsibilities, and even as our seasons have gone longer from March well into Thanksgiving. The second leg of the stool is actually helping create a landscape that is more resilient to fire. The reason we are seeing more catastrophic wildfires in central and eastern Washington and now in western Washington is that we have a forest health crisis. In eastern Washington, central and eastern Washington alone, we had 2.75 million acres of forest that were dead and dying starting when I first came in 2017. We set a goal to restore 1.25 million acres of those forests in 20 years. Within 6 years, we're already halfway to our goal, having restored 600,000 acres on federal, state, tribal, and private lands. And our goal is to achieve it in half the time in a decade. But now we are seeing a rapid decline in the health of our forest on the west side of our state in every corner from the I-5 corridor basically out to the coast. And we are working now to help develop that forest health plan and help get the resources to our counties and communities to be able to make our forests more resilient on the west side. The third leg of that stool is actually the empowerment of homeowners and landowners to help make their home, their neighborhood, and their community more resilient for these fires, because it makes it, one, far less destructive and far less risk to life when a homeowner has created that resilient space around their home, but also when a neighborhood empowers the entire neighborhood to take that work on. And it also means saving the lives of our firefighters. Having been on the fire for the Oregon Road Fire and the Gray Fire last year and experiencing literally what happened in Meadow Lake and many of those neighborhoods where it took over very quickly, enormous amount of fuel in a home, whether it's their gas tanks or anything else, and very, very hard to fight those fires because you're mixing structural with a wildland. So the more that homeowners can do to make their homes and their families and their neighborhoods more resilient, the safer they will be, the safer our firefighters and first responders will be. And that is why we have invested in Wildfire Ready Neighbors and wanting this program to literally spread like wildfire throughout the counties of Western Washington and Central and Eastern Washington.
Did I add?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
That was a perfect explanation of why the Wildfire Ready is so important. But also to add to that, as firefighters, as when we show up to their home, if the neighborhood and the homeowners have taken these steps, it protects us because we go. The best defense is a good offense. And if a home has not prepared themselves, then we're going to have to stop and put resources on that home. But if we have an entire block or a home or a neighborhood that has done this, that is wildfire ready, we can then attack the fire rather than going directly to the home. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, no, thank you. You know, specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And I have one more question from the chat. It's for Chief Doan.
There you go. We're going to do this dance.
So can you talk a little bit about the fire risk in Gig Harbor specifically? Do you think homes are built with more flammable materials? And talk about growth of the WUI and general wildland concerns in your area.
Well, I don't want to be an alarmist, but if you look at our community and the fuel load that we have here in this community, I mean, we're in the middle of trees, and it is getting hotter, and it is getting drier. And it does concern me. We have 22 firefighters on duty for the entire community. And in the middle of August, a 100-degree day with wind at 50 miles an hour, all it takes is a spark, and it will be running through this community. That's why we need your help. That's why this is such an important program, that you are taking those defensible spaces, that all of our homeowners and our communities and Fox Island and Canterwood come together to do fuel mitigation and make their homes wildfire ready, because there's only so much we can do. Even with the great partnership we have with DNR that's going to help and be here, and our neighbors, we have to have homeowners also partnering and being a third leg of that stool and taking the fire risk down. Thanks.
And I'll just add to that, because I think there's a lot of I think there's a significant lack of awareness, unfortunately, still on parts of the west side of the Cascades, largely because we haven't had catastrophic fires like we've seen in Okanogan County, Spokane County, Chelan County, right? But I think if people can remember back to maybe they can't, but 2021, I believe, the Bonnie Lake fire, right? And I drove on my way here. I looked at neighborhoods and communities, and I will say much there actually was, I was driving through, because I've learned a little bit about how fire works in these 8 years. There were areas in this community that look far greater risk than that community in Bonnie Lake. Bonnie Lake is one that was a large subdivision in that area. It didn't have a lot of trees. It had a few, but not a lot of trees like here. There was a lot of roads and infrastructure in, but what had happened is the wind had picked it up from the side of the highway, and it raced up the hill, and we lost a home in that fire, and we're fortunate because of the quick response from the fire department there and DNR, we were able to actually contain it, and so it only lost one home. But when I travel through this and you see the amount of greenery we have and how it doesn't take long for this greenery to dry out after a few weeks, the risk is very significant, coupled with the fact that so few homeowners are aware of what to do and what steps. And while it may be the case that wildfire doesn't hit this community today, it could be a year from now or 2 years from now. It takes time to be getting and reaching the broader population to take the action and build that awareness. The sooner we are starting this work at every single neighborhood in those high-risk areas, the sooner we're going to be able to protect lives whenever that fire strikes. Any other questions? And we have one in the back.
Yes, 2 questions. You mentioned the number of the helicopters we started with.
Yeah.
How many do we currently have?
Yeah.
And then secondly, how can we communicate to our neighbors, especially those that have lived in this community a long time and don't feel the threat of fire here? How can we communicate the change that has occurred and that the risk and how and why this risk has heightened?
Yeah. So I think I'm going to take the second question first. And so the question is really, how do you build this awareness, right? I mean, I'll just start. Part of the challenge of because we've been so successful the last 2 years in keeping 95% of our fires below 10 acres, that many people thought that last year we had a light fire season. They're like, wow, we got lucky. We hardly had any fires. And I was like, no, that's actually not the case. It's that we didn't have the smoke-filled skies because we had 95% of our over 1,500 fires we kept to below 10 acres. And so while we had more fires on the west side, very few people actually saw the result of that because they didn't get so big. They weren't so destructive and dangerous. And so I think it's that context of consistently saying to people, here's where those fires are. And we can provide a map that actually show you where fires have been the last decade, eastern, central, and western Washington, so they can see how close it is to their community, how much Kitsap and Pierce County have had fires and other district counties around it. And then also be able to get more of that awareness. And part of that is why we're here. That's part of launching this program of Wildfire Readies, for people to start saying, well, if it's here and and our fire district's talking about, and our firefighters are talking about, and our conservation, and our local government officials, and Department of Natural Resources, it must mean that there is a concern and a risk. Let me learn more. And so this is all about an education component. I think there's another side of this that we really want people to realize, that 90% of our fires annually are caused by humans. And so the more people are aware that there's a fire risk and you can't leave a campfire alone, or you shouldn't be doing your debris pile burn during certain times when it's not allowed, the more we're going to be able to reduce these kinds of fire risk in the first place. But it's education. That's why we need the media here, and we're grateful you're here. That's why we need community organizations and community members, neighborhood homeowner associations. You have a really large group of people that you can reach and getting that message out. We're happy to help provide that. I know our fire districts are also very happy. On the aviation side, I think this has been a significant, I would say, transformation of the firefighting in Washington State and Department of Natural Resources. When I came in 2017, we did only have 8 Vietnam War helicopters to fight these fires. They're amazing, beautifully well-built machines by amazing mechanics and engineers at Department of Natural Resources, but there is only 8, and they are older. And the reality is we had not been investing in wildfire response, and 2014 through 2016 was the big wake-up call for Washington State. 1 million acres burned in 2015. 3 firefighters tragically lost their lives, and it was clear that we didn't have enough resources to cover even central and eastern Washington and the increasing risk of wildfires, and we certainly didn't have it for the larger Washington State. We have been growing that investment to now 10 Vietnam War helicopters and 2 Kodiaks that are our own, and thanks for the work that we did in helping pass House Bill 1168, the largest investment in wildfire response and forest restoration, community resilience, $500 million over 8 years. We've been able to actually build the infrastructure we need on the ground for those air resources and add more to our fleet. But I will say the biggest change that actually has happened that has enabled us, like last year and this year at the height of our season, we'll probably be able to have a total of 42 aircraft and be able to, frankly, blanket the state, as I say, and pre-position them in every corner of our state so we can get on those fires. Any fire, no matter where it is, roughly in 30 minutes with aircraft. Is that after the Labor Day firestorm of 2020 that I highlighted earlier about the wake-up call on the importance of communities becoming more resilient and doing the Wildfire Ready Neighbors, we were calling for all of our air resources that we had on call when needed contracts. Our firefighters are call when needed contracts, technically. If my house is on fire, I call 911, and I'm hoping I'm going to get it a fire response in 4 to 7 minutes, maybe it's a little longer, we all have that sense of call when needed. The problem was in Labor Day firestorm 2020, California and Oregon were also equally on fire. And they had, because of the hurricane force winds, the drought that had impacted all of the West Coast, and we were calling for air resources. And what happened is our response was, we're sorry, but you don't have enough values at risk. And what that meant is we didn't have enough of the higher density population centers, close proximity to wildfires compared to Oregon and California. And that was the wake-up call for me that said, wow, we are going to keep on losing out most likely year after year just based on what we've seen in the western United States on drought and fire risk, unless we start to actually take control of our own destiny and bring those resources under our control. So we moved then from a call when needed contract on most of our aviation fleet to more of an exclusive use that we have for a period where we know is the highest wildfire risk parts of our time season, where we're going to have more fires throughout every corner of the state. We moved to exclusive use so that we have them under our control. Now, when we don't need them, they're not sitting waiting, right? They are actually, we lease them out to other states. We sent them last year to BC when BC was under significant fire. We've sent them to Alaska. We've sent them to Texas. We've sent them to other parts. But it enables us to have the control to be able to call them back when we need them and have them at our disposal and not be at risk. And if I could just make one last piece on this, what really needs to happen at a national level is a real comprehensive analysis of what is the level of wildfire resources in the air and on the ground that we're going to need pre-positioned throughout the country based on the seasons that different parts of our country are on fire, and put out that call for that kind of request on research, because it takes time to build this aircraft. It takes time to train our firefighters, our incident command team, management teams, so that we are building that full natural disaster response for wildfire, given the increasing need and urgency. Because when we're having to go to Australia for firefighters, it is incredibly challenging, or equipment, and most of the European countries and other countries are now actually competing against the U.S. on aviation resources because there's not enough contractors, builders, and they can do contracts like that where Greece can order 75 overnight without a lot of work to do, and that's why the United States right now more than ever has to get a comprehensive strategy and plan for wildfire response.
Commissioner, to your point on readiness,
Yeah.
what does DNR expect this summer? Have you been able to forecast how good or how bad the fire season's going to be?
Yeah, I get this question asked a lot, right? Which is, I'll be honest, I threw out my crystal ball a long time ago, right? And the way my motto and approach is always prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And honestly, I think that's what we have to do all the time. We are in, I think, our third year of drought. Every corner of our state largely is going to have a drought. We are expecting then that we are going to have another tough fire season like we did last year and the year before that, and that we're going to see more fires increasing on the west side of the state, largely because of the fuel load being so high and the lack of awareness of the risk that too many of our homeowners and community members and more people out on our, enjoying the beautiful state we live in. And so we're predicting that we're going to have increasing fires this year. We're also predicting that sometimes, if I could, I keep alluding to Labor Day firestorm because it really is a year of real significant learning at the local and state level in fire response. But it also, if we think about that year was going to be a tough year, but we didn't expect to be too tough. And we actually had gotten through most of the summer up until around right before Labor Day, where we had not that many acres burn. We had a cool, wet July. We're thinking, we might just get out of this year with really not a big challenge. And then what happened is you had what I call sort of the deadly cocktail of drought extended, 4 weeks, hot temperatures. You had high fuel load because you had a wet spring, so the grass had grown high. You had it able to dry out, so it's ready to burn, and then you had hurricane force winds. And the worst thing you can have is hot, dry landscape and hurricane force winds, and then you had Labor Day where everybody was locked up for COVID for so long they were out on the landscape, and real dangerous activity happened where we had so many fire starts. So we're predicting it's going to be a tough fire season. We're going to see that June is going to have some cooler temperatures, we're hoping, but it is probably going to start to pick up pretty significantly in basically July and August. And if I can just urge people, because most people think when people are going back to school, hey, we're out of fire season, kids are back in school, fires must be sort of ending. All you have to do is think back to Thanksgiving week of I got to remember my years, 2022, where we had 3 fires on McCaw Nation up out on the coast. The week of Thanksgiving. We had 8 major fires down the entire I-5 corridor, basically from Whatcom, King County down to Cowlitz and Lewis County and Clark. It just tells you that was in November. So our fire seasons are changing. They're starting earlier and they're going much longer. Yep, we got 2 hands in the audience. I'm going to go with the gentleman in the white shirt, and then I'll go with the gentleman in the red shirt, and it's only based on who went up first. So, again.
I was wondering if you had any statistics that we could share with our community regarding fireworks on July 4th. It's a time of the year where it's warmer, it's drier, and even though we have a fireworks ban, not everybody follows it. Are there any statistics, is there any data on the added risk of fireworks at that time of the year?
Yeah, and I'll just answer a little bit, but then I am going to turn to, I think, the fire chief, because I know you're far more aware of sort of what happens locally around fireworks. But let me first start by saying my birthday's July 3rd, so I am like the last one that wants to stop a party on July 4th. And my grandmother, I think I was born 1155, said, I think we're going to have a firework. So I like not to be the deadly combination in the summer, but instead be the one with allows the joy and jubilance, right, of that celebration. I will say that we have seen, and I can't point to any fire, but I have seen where, yes, fireworks are creating a higher risk for fires. Oftentimes you have people who aren't aware at how dry the condition is and that we have wildfires on the west side of our state. You also have people who aren't necessarily thinking about where is the best place to have like these fireworks go off. And one, it creates enormous risk to people's lives, but it also creates enormous risk for wildfires. And I think it's something that more and more of our state and every corner of our state needs to be aware of and addressing that risk and ideally reducing the fireworks or having them done in the right location by a professional. And now I'm going to turn it over to the expert.
We can work on getting to you some statistics both from DNR and from Gig Harbor. So we'll get that. So I don't have any offhand. But to address fireworks, I love celebrating their birthday and 4th of July too, right? And it's a lot of fun. But we need to think about what we're doing in our communities because it is illegal in many places. And I hear it a lot about how, you're anti-American or we've always done fireworks. But I think unless going to a place that is done by the community, it's a selfish act. Because if you think of what you're doing when you're setting off your right to fire off fireworks, my God-given right to do that and to celebrate 4th of July, What about your neighbor's right? What about your neighbor's right to have a home that's safe and not doesn't catch on fire? What about your neighbor's right to not have their dog run away? What about your neighbor's right who may have a child with special needs that or maybe a war veteran or a firefighter? And I think really sometimes we need to stop and look at what we're doing to our communities when we're selfish and we say it's my right to fire off fireworks. I don't care about your rights. So get me on a little soapbox here about fireworks. I'm not anti-American. I love it. I have a lot of fun, but let's do them safely, and let's quit thinking about our rights and start thinking about others. So we'll get you some statistics.
Can I add one story on the fireworks, and then I'm going to get my first year in this role responding to fires, I cut my teeth on the 2017-2018 fires, but I grew up in sort of the Portland area and the Pierce County area. My grandparents' farm was in Pierce County, and my father raised my sister and I in Portland. And our childhood playground was Multnomah Falls. And it was one of the places I fell in love with nature. I fell in love with the forest. I fell in love with water. I fell in love with this sense of peace that nature brings us. And I have 3 boys. I raised them on a farm, and I was down there in that year that the Eagle Creek fire went. And it was 3 months before that fire, and I was down there with my 3 boys. They've all gone off to college now, and it's harder to find time with them. And I was like, wow, it's just across the bridge over there. I've never, ever taken them there. I really can't believe I never took them to the place where I fell in love with nature and where I spent much of my childhood playing. And I almost took a left and went to take them. I said, that's okay. I got meetings to get to. They got, soccer practice to get to. I'll come back another day, and I'll share this beautiful place with them. 3 months later, the Eagle Creek fire went off. And it was as a result of a firework set off by a young kid who didn't know better, was just out playing, and 50,000 acres burned. And that landscape will never in my lifetime be what it was when I was a child. And that, to me, is one of the, if anybody could just show what a firework did. And honestly, that kid has, feels horrible for the action, right? And has had to pay a penalty for it, a pretty significant one. And we're lucky that lives weren't lost, or it wasn't in a neighborhood where we see a lot of these fireworks go off. And so the more we can tell these stories, and I think DNR, we can help, I think, local fire districts at getting some of those stories out because it builds that awareness and the risk of it. So we will work on statistics, but I think stories also really are powerful. And yes, the gentleman in a red shirt.
Thank you. Jim Braden. I'm with Fox Islands Emergency Preparedness Organization. First off, I wanted to say to you that we're thrilled with what you're creating, what you're getting started. We've been working on Fox Island. We're very vulnerable. We've been working for over 10 years to try to get a better awareness of our citizens about the vulnerabilities that we experience. And that has been our chief frustration for that whole period of time. Chief Doan talked a little bit about not wanting to be an alarmist, but we don't know what else is going to work. I mean, it's one of those things we really worry about. It's very difficult to get people to be aware of what's going on. We've survived COVIDs and a lot of different things, and we're kind of numb to some of this. So we're looking forward to what you folks are going to develop to try to get this awareness working on this important subject.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, I do, we started it in central eastern Washington and the counties that, have had fire year after year after year. And we're thrilled that we've been able to continue to prove the value of it and continue to get resources and expand it now to counties on the west side of the state. I raised my kids on an island, and I was actually shocked when I first came into this role in 2017 to see San Juan Islands was dark red. Okay, there were counties in central and eastern Washington that have been dark red, right? And I'm not talking about politics, just I'm talking about fire. Okay, the fire color, right? And San Juan County was dark red. It had some of the highest wildfire risk in western Washington, and this is 8 years ago, roughly. That is now expanded to more and more areas west of the Cascades, like I've said today. I'm most concerned about our islands oftentimes because it's enormously difficult for us to get resources in. Ground resources, air resources a little bit easier, but it's still not easy, right? But ground resources are critical because air resources can help start to contain a fire, but you still need those ground resources coming in to build the containment, get the dozers in, get the trucks in. But as we know, it's hard. And if I can just probably want to, because I have so many stories in my 8 years, but you might remember when an Alaska airline plane, and not that a door fell off, but when it was actually stolen, right, and was flying over, the central Puget Sound area. And I remember this is happening, you're hearing it on the news, and I immediately went to go call my aquatics deputy, because we manage all the aquatic lands of the state, to say, everybody get together, we're going to need to clean up a mess in the water, right? When all of a sudden it landed, and it was not an aquatics response, but I'm calling my wildfire deputy like, we got a major problem because it just crashed on an island that now we're trying to get response crews in on the ground, which wasn't easy. And we were lucky it was on an island that is so populated. But I will tell you, I would never, my glass crystal ball would never have predicted in the 8 years that somebody would steal a plane and then crash it on an island in the central Puget Sound area, and we would then have a fire that we are responding to with NTSB and the FBI and, the FAA and the local fire district and the National Guard and the Navy and the Army. I would never have predicted that. So, as you're talking to your homeowners and residents, you can predict a fire on your island easily, but you couldn't predict that. And that tells you how that risk is very, very significant. It can happen anytime, and more prepared than ever on an island you need to be, because it's harder for us to get resources there. And it's harder for people to get in and out. And the story of Medical Lake is a perfect example. While they had more in and out, they were still struggled to get the number of people out of those communities as fast as they could. Some were leaving by horse, to be honest, to get out of there fast enough because the roads in and out were so limited and clogged, right? So.
All right.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah. Outside for the media, if you guys want to meet us out front, we're going to show some of this stuff in person.
You gonna put flames on it?